Hi and welcome to another episode, and what we've got here is what the final look of my dual arcade joystick will look like. But first I want to take you a bit of a flashback on solving a problem I did by drilling holes in the wrong place. As you can see, I've filled in the holes with the wood filler, those holes that I incorrectly drilled. Let's move across to the joystick. You can see that I've also filled that one in over there as well. The other holes are supposed to be there, the ones that are greyish, the ones that shouldn't be there. Filled them in. It took about 2 or 3 goes at filling it in, because basically as it was drying it would sink a little bit, which is perfectly normal. It does warn you that on the can. But as I said, 2 or 3 goes, even with, like, it's not a particularly big hole. And then I sanded it down using a sand block and some decent sandpaper. Being careful that I don't take off too much of the actual surface here, because obviously I don't want even bigger dips. But now it'll be time to mess around and put on the vinyl. I'm not going to show doing that because I'm not skilled in doing it. It's the first time for a long time I've actually done anything with it, and I really haven't got the filming space to actually show you, well, get my big head in the way and everything like that. So I'll get that in, or lay that down rather, before I cut the holes, because what I want to show is that it is actually down, and then show that, you got to cut a little bit by bit. But the actual laying of it, all I can recommend is that you look up other videos that explain how to do that, and then come straight back here. So now that's out of the way, I do want to point out with those holes, I learnt a little bit of a mistake. Again, as you can see, there's sort of like a nodule effect that's happened after putting it back in. What I would recommend is that you put the tracker ball in before putting the vinyl down, and then sand even more for where they are, because that's what's happened. The screws have gone in and then pushed up some of the filler, and it's made little bumps. But I did that after I put the vinyl down, you see. So do that before you put the vinyl down, unscrew it again so that you've got perfect flat area for the vinyl. Because with all the holes, basically what I've done, you'll see maybe from here if I can get this to come out. I can't get it to come out. But basically you cover up all the holes, and then I recommend that you cut in and make a slice from edge to edge a few times, and then you end up with sort of like a petal, an inverted petal effect. And then you can squash that out of the way and then cut all the way around, so you have a perfect circle. And you have to do that again and again and again for the joystick holes, the buttons holes, even the spinner holes, which is obviously just 5-button holes as well, and a big one for the tracker, and then the same for around the back. Hey, it's PCB Way. This June 2023, it's their 9th anniversary promotion with a $100,000 allowance. It's first come, first served when grabbing coupons. There are also sales on PCB and assembly orders with up to 50% off. Just look at these coupons: $5 off a $30 order, up to $200 off a $2,999 order. And right here you can see what you can use these coupons on. You could start with a $5 order on 10 pieces of PCBs. There are also some sales on PCB prototyping and assembly, and flex PCBs with up to 60% off. Check out some of these great discounts on CNCing, 3D printing, sheet metal, moulding and casting. Which prize would you like to win? Sign up and try your chances. Click the link down below for more info. Let's now have a bit of a look at the extra little bits that I've bought for externally to this Arcadex joystick, so that we can maybe have a bit of a chat about that. Firstly, I want to point out the rubber feet that I've put on the bottom. There's 6 of them, just on the corners and in the middle there. They're actually black on the bottom, not brown. But that's just to keep it off of the floor and not keep running on the vinyl. You saw before that the vinyl on top was like a shiny flecked red stuff, whereas on the sides I've actually put just a normal flat, slightly glossy I suppose, vinyl. I would highly recommend that you do go very carefully with doing that. I didn't have to use any water or washing up liquid or anything like that. Just used it with other spludgers and things that I had. I would recommend having a second person to help peel off while you're actually applying and try to get the bubbles out together. And when you're going around a tight edge like this, actually use a hairdryer on its maximum temperature, not really close up, but enough to help soften the vinyl so you can bend it over an edge. And that's what we did. We applied it to the bottom first, and then on the side was a bit too wide, but then bend it over, and as you can maybe see in the video, there's a bit of a crease across. It wasn't perfect, everything ever is, but it's good enough because it's on the bottom. Who cares? You don't see it all the time anyway. But with that, you can see the button, the dual button for changing the joysticks from 4 to 8, which I'll program up later. As you can see, what I'm talking about with like the petal effect for the buttons is I still need to stick this down on the inside here. So there's a hole for USB cables and stuff to come out the back. But around the back, there's no vents anymore because I've covered that over, and I'm just not going to bother to cut in the holes for the vents because I don't really think it needs them. There's enough air openings all over the place to make that work. Now you'll notice that part of the kit that I had before, I didn't have these latches because on the inside it does have magnets, but I find that they don't particularly hold because, well, they just don't. They're quite strong, but I prefer the idea of having these latches. So if anyone's interested on links to those, I'll put them in. You have to sort of line them up and everything. And as I open this up, or one-handed, trying to balance everything, you'll notice, oh, can we do this without making lots of mess? You'll notice that these parts I've actually bent. I had to use 2 sets of pliers and bend it over so that they pointed downwards instead of straight out. But you'll see that the magnets that I'm talking about are lined up as well. Maybe I haven't got everything particularly perfect for lining up, but I did try my best. Maybe that one is a little bit off there, but I had it, well, I obviously haven't lined it up so well, but it's good enough. And then I've screwed them, the latches directly on the back. We'll come to all the wiring fun in a minute. Then what I've also done is added these big strong handles on either side. I've got a strong spring. If you're wearing headphones, be careful. See, strong spring inside. That allows me to carry it with far more ease than just trying to hook my fingers underneath or on the edge, because even though I've got the latches on the back, I don't want to put strain on the latches. Now those latches, by the way, I did have to bend them into shape. They didn't come in that downward hoop sort of thing. They'd have the hoop, but that was flat. But I bent them downwards. So if we can maybe have a quick look at them. Again, you can see that it comes out and then bends downwards and then around. Before, it was just straight out with a curve sort of pointing towards the screws again, but, you know, across the top, if that made sense. So I've had to bend them by using 2 lots of pliers. They come in a set of quite a few, but that's how I did that. Let's open it up now and have a look inside. Oops, sorry, before I mention that, the T-moulding, you can see that it comes down and around. Now on the edges here, I would highly recommend that you cut out like an inverted V, so that, you know, for this area, there isn't actually any of the, if it was the letter T, the straight down bar isn't there anymore, because otherwise it'll try to bend and curl on itself as you're going around, because obviously that's what it's going to do. So you need to, as you go around a corner, you need to cut out a little bit. So sort of, before you actually put it in, rest it against the edge of the wood and then bend it. And then from there you can sort of figure out how much of a V of the downward bit you need to cut out. So it does that nice straight curve there. And the same on the other end. And then do that for everything, including the top. Because you need to go around the curve. It's maybe not as tight. So we maybe cut out 2 notches. as you go around the top there. Anyway, as I said, let's have a look inside. So inside, you can see it's a bit of a rat's nest of wires. You'll see that basically the harness that came with the Ultimate I/O will reach most of the fire buttons. It will not reach all of them, but most of them. I had to make some extension cables for the earth cable that's in there to make sure that hooked up to everything properly. Because this fire button was too far away, and I think another one was too far away. The fire buttons on the side, I've had to create my own two-way cable. You can see that it's actually two cables going into the same port there. That's so that basically I've daisy chained the fire buttons, these two here for left and right for the pinball. I can easily move that, but the point is they are there if needed. Well, they are needed, but which fire buttons will turn out to be the best for pinball, I don't know yet because I've not programmed up everything yet. The joysticks needed spades put onto the end of the cables so that they would reach and connect to the harness. Again, that's easily done with the kits that I showed you before. You just need pliers and some patience, and don't squeeze your own finger and give yourself blood blisters. What else? Yeah, the wiring for the 4 to 8 way joystick control thing, these things that fit on the bottom, I've put there because that seems like a decent distance from both joysticks. That needs to be programmed up and make sure it's wired up properly. What else is there? Oh yes, the spinners will have their own little PCBs, which you'll need to then plug into a USB hub so that I can have that coming out the back. And of course the Ultimate I/O has a USB hub so that it can be controlled. It needs programmed up. The trackable has this little PCB on at the moment, which basically looks like the ones that belong to the spinners, but this, from what I understand, and I get the wiring correct, can actually go directly into the Ultimate I/O, and I will not need this little PCB. So that will save me a USB port if I don't have to. Then what's the other thing? Of course, this will need USB power. Program it up at first, but it will then need USB power. So again, I need to have a USB hub stuck down in here at some point. But from there really isn't much to it of wiring it up. It just takes patience. Please don't take ideas of what's what right now for this wiring, because I might be incorrect. I've just tried to make sure that wiring can reach at this point, rather than making 100% sure which sides are which, as in these micro switches. I don't know if the top part it should be ground or the bottom part should be ground. So don't take notice at the moment. At the moment, you're just having a glance through and seeing what kind of mess it could look in here. I have seen some ideas of cleaning up and tidying up the wiring in here, but actually I think I might leave it looking a bit of a rat's nest, because if it turns out something needs to be changed, it'll be actually easier to change than it will be to have to unwrap what makes it all look nice and neat. And besides, when this is closed, it's closed. Who cares what rat's nest it looks like? Normally on my PCs, I do like it all nice and tidied up, but inside here, I'm not so fussed. So until next time, when I've actually got this wired up properly and programmed up, which I will show you step by step, the apps that you have to do to program stuff up, and I'll make sure that the wiring's 100% correct. And then from there, you can take some notes if you're deciding to do this sort of thing yourself. But until then, can you please go down below and check out the links to my Patreon, my Discord, hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification bell. But as always, happy gaming.